Are you serious? Are you serious? Well, my good friend Doug Hagmann is at it again. Of course, he and his son, Doug and Joe Hagmann of the famous Blog Talk radio show, Hagmann Report. Doug Hagmann has stepped up and has uncovered some very interesting information as it relates to the Winter Olympics to be held in Russia in Sochi. Now, those of you, get a cup of coffee, everybody. What? Are you serious? Here's the deal. On New Year's Eve, I revealed in my New Year's Eve broadcast the 14 apocalyptic signs for the year 2014. One of them was this: Winter Olympics, fear and terror. Now, that was the 4 words the Lord gave me. Winter Olympics, fear and terror. And I don't know what that means exactly, but I just know this, that after that December 31st, 2013 broadcast, it wasn't probably within a week to 10 days, we began to hear of these bombings. There was 2 bombings there in Volgograd, which is about 400 miles or 400 kilometers from Sochi. We've been hearing about riot police. We've been hearing about terror threats. It's just unbelievable. Well, now we have a report by Doug Hagmann on threats at Sochi expose a larger agenda, says Doug Hagmann's intelligence source. Let me read you this. You can read this entire article at the Canada Free Press. That's www.canadafreepress.com, and you can read the entire, or at his website, which is www.homelandsecurityus.com. That's www.homelandsecurityus.com. Here's the article in the Canadian Free Press, as well as the Hagmann website. Knowing about the terror threat to the Olympic Games at Sochi is one thing, he says. Understanding the threat and what's behind it's quite another. There's a very important backstory that no one is reporting, stated the source. Understanding what's happening behind the scenes will put things into a certain perspective, and it is a perspective from which nightmares are born, he added. I was recently asked about the possibility of a false flag attack at the Olympics by someone I respect. He is well-grounded and well-informed, and is not someone who travels down the rabbit holes chasing alternative realities. Initially, I had not given that angle as much consideration as it warranted. After carefully consideration of his question, I contacted several sources active in the intelligence community. Posing the question, he asked, I was somewhat surprised to receive this similar response from each source, providing a very coherent, albeit disturbing scenario rooted in the current politics of the Middle East. It appears that I was a bit behind the curve about the very real threat of a false flag event taking place at the Olympics, the Winter Olympics, of course, in Sochi, Russia. To clarify the definition of a false flag, it also includes the passive act of looking the other way, or allowing the event to occur, or permitting just enough of something to happen that it would capture the attention of the world. It certainly does not need to be on the scale of 9/11, but it could very well have similar consequences that could lead to a global war. Despite looking at and assessing the information daily, I was just not thinking big enough. The following should provide you with the information and scenario that seems to put everything into perspective. Now, when you talk about a global war, of course, you know, Jesus said there would be nation would rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. And there'd be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in divers places, and all of these are the beginning of sorrows. We do understand that there's going to be a Psalms 83 war that David spoke about as it relates to Israel. But when you talk about the Winter Olympics, you're talking about a global perspective or a global focus, a myopic look into the hearts and the minds of the human race. I believe deep, deep, deep down to the dark depth of the crevices of the human existence, we find the truth. Because out of the abundance of the mouth, the heart speaketh. If your heart's full of evil, it will speak evil and will eventually perform evil things. If your heart is filled with good, if it's been washed in the blood of Christ, out of your mouth will come, of course, blessings and uplifting prayers for one another. Not ignoring the actual dangers that's on this planet, but having the answer to counteract the evil. Can you have some more coffee with me? I've only got one hand today. And sometimes I just kind of get behind. The Olympic Games are very high profile. It's a very high profile event with multinational participation. Any attack, terrorist event, or disruption at Sochi, whether a false flag or a real world action, would be viewed as an attack on the world's Olympic Games. Not just against Russia, considering everything that's gone into the planning of the games and preparation of the venue. It, in this case, is to tune of a report of $50 billion to put on the Winter Olympics. Sochi provides itself as a near-perfect venue for such an event, which needed to be on a large scale. A smaller attack or the mere discovery of a plot having a significant potential would likely be sufficient to enable Russia's President Vladimir Putin to gain popular support at home and globally. Now, we've already seen a number of disconcerting things take place in the run-up to the games that should serve as an indicator of potential problems. Much telling, perhaps, that the Saudi intelligence minister, Prince Bandar, and bin Sultan visited Putin back in August of 2013 and again in December of 2013. It is well known that Bandar, also known as Bandar Bush, speaks for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. He told Putin that the Saudis would not authorize or support any terror attacks during the Olympics, but they would stop such attacks under the right circumstances. Now, what was the message in that statement? And specifically, what circumstances were being referenced? Through Bandar, the Saudis delivered a backward threat over Syria and the future of President Assad, of course, at Syria. They are strong-arming Putin over Syria. Of course, the Saudi Arabians want Assad gone as it relates to Syria, pushing him into a corner to keep him from overly backing Assad by military and other means, by using the threat of terrorism maybe at the Winter Olympics as a bargaining chip. Now, the Saudis are basically telling Putin to stop providing materials support to Assad, and failure to comply means that they won't stop a terror attack at the games, over which they appear to have certain control. On one hand, this could not have pleased Putin. On the other hand, it appears to have given Putin a deflective suspect, a solid alibi, and a free pass of sorts relative to terror act if there's an accident at the Winter Olympics. Now, those who have followed Hagmann's reports on Benghazi and its relevance to overthrowing Assad understand that Syria holds strategic military and economic importance to Russia. We also know that Putin has questioned the motives of the West, especially United States and U.S.-led NATO, the British, the French, the Saudis, and even Israel, from the Arab Spring through the present-day Syria. The world has seen the chaos that resulted from the Arab Spring, and Putin does not want Syria to descend into the same chaos via the installation of the Muslim Brotherhood regime. So, and that's one thing that I'm so proud of Putin for. He doesn't want the Muslim Brotherhood to take over the world, to take over all of the Muslim states, which apparently the Obama administration is supporting. It's quite obvious that the Obama administration supports the Muslim Brotherhood. They say it with their own actions and their own words. Okay, so that's not a new news. So the Olympics are being used as a bargaining chip by the Saudis to tie Putin's hands, at least until the Olympics are over. Putin has so far been reserved in his response, or perhaps he's actually being calculating rather than reserved. And you can read the rest of this article. Again, go to the Hagmann's website, www.homelandsecurityus.com. Now, I just had Doug Hagmann and his son Joe Hagmann on my show about a week ago, and I'm going to try to get him again next week, leading up to the Winter Olympics. I think it'd be very important. So I'm going to book them as we get into this. The Winter Olympics in Sochi actually begins February 7th. I'm going to try every way in the world to get them as a guest just before the start of the Winter Olympics, if not on that day, February 7th. I know they're very busy, but I'm going to try. They do a great job, and this is a big story. And the reason why I'm going to do it is because of what the Lord put in my spirit. 14 apocalyptic signs for the year 2014, and one of them was these very words: Winter Olympics, terror, and fear. I'm very concerned. I don't know what that means, other than there could be an attack during the Sochi Olympics. There may not be. It may just be terror and fear. But we really need to pray for the people that are attending there. We need to pray for the nation of Russia. We need to pray for all the innocent people involved, because, folks, evil is everywhere. It's not just in radical Islamic nations, but it's also among other nations, including the West, when you think of the New World Order. And the Bible will refer to the New World Order basically by calling it the beast. And you can read that in Revelation 13 and Revelation 14. And, of course, we know that the Apostle Paul speaks about it in 1 Thessalonians 5 and 2 Thessalonians 2. And as the peace agreement process is still going on, are you serious? Which is a covenant. Really, it's not a peace treaty as much as it's just a covenant with many, which would include peace and security. You can find that in Daniel 9:27. The Arab Spring is laid out right there in front of you in Daniel 11:41 through 45. But I also want to point you to Matthew 24 and also Mark 13 and Luke 21 as it relates to the different biblical or apocalyptic signs of the end times. I'm preaching this to you for a reason. Jesus Christ is coming soon. We don't know what chaos is going to take place just before he comes for the bride, but we know we're in the beginning of sorrows, and things are intensifying in biblical prophecy. And if you're saved, well, you're washed in the blood and you're prepared to meet the Lord. But if you're not saved, well, then the words of Winter Olympics, terror and fear, has a more important ring to it. Give your life to Jesus Christ. We're living in the last days. God bless. Give your life to Jesus. We'll be praying for you. God bless.